Good morning. Today I'll tell you a story. I was in my first year of college and I had decided to visit my brother in Khairgaon village in Valsad district of Gujarat. My brother was working as a civil engineer in Ukai Canal construction project, a government project. I had decided to go in my car. I started my journey the next morning. I was expected to reach Khairgaon by the evening, but there was a crowd of demonstrators on the road ahead. The road was blocked by people. I went to a nearby hotel and had my breakfast. When the crowds dispersed, I got back into my car. The sky was cloudy and the weather fine, so I picked up speed and kept driving for about 4 hours. I stopped by a hotel for lunch. The weather was getting colder by then as the day had progressed. I had lunch at the hotel. I asked the hotel manager how far Surat was since I was going via Surat city to Khairgaon. He told me that Surat city was 4 hours away. I moved on. I was worried if I could reach Khairgaon that night or otherwise I would have to halt at Surat. I surmised that it would take me another 7 to 8 hours to reach Khairgaon. So instead of halting the night at a hotel in Surat, I decided I would move on to Khairgaon. The fog was setting in, so I had to put my car headlights on. I slowed down, honking time and again so that I do not hurt anyone on the road or I do not go off the road, narrow road. It was nearing sunset and the place was getting darker all the time. Till around 7 p.m. It was pitch dark. Even with headlights on, I could hardly see a few feet. The fog had stopped all visibility. I could hardly see anyone on the roads. I took a left turn as I had known those roads I had travelled earlier and had a fairly good knowledge of those roads. But sometimes I have had problems in navigating in the dark. After continuing for a few kilometers, I realized that I had taken a wrong lane. I realized that I had lost my sense of direction in the dark. I could not see anything either to the left or right of me and could not correlate where I was. I came out of my car and looked around me. I could not see any house or any person, not even a street dog. I tried to take a U-turn, but the lane was narrow and with no street lights, it made it impossible to take a U-turn. Those days, there were no mobiles and there was no way I could contact my people, no way to call for help. I knew I was in a problem. But I moved on, braving and hoping that I would reach the main roads and then ask for help. Then I could faintly hear the sound of a bike coming towards me, and I hoped I could stop him and get some help from him. So I stopped again and waved at him. I shouted for help, but the biker didn't even look towards me, raised speed, and went by. It was a bad day, I thought. I sat back in my car and slowly started moving ahead. It was around 10 in the night now. I would have continued for a quarter of a mile, inching and stopping in between to see the road ahead. When I saw at a distance a man in a white shirt running towards me. He was panting and with his hands raised, stopped right in front of my car. I was aghast with fear. I did not expect someone with a ghostly appearance to be standing in front of my car in the middle of the night. I didn't know what to do. I tried to move towards the right, but the road was narrow. Both sides of the road was cut out, and I could fall several feet in the mud below if I ventured to turn or move to the right. So I stopped right in the middle of the road, blaring my horns. The stranger came to the side of my window and with folded hands asked me where I was headed to. I shouted back at him, "What the hell are you doing in the middle of the night?" He told me that he had missed his local bus and was going back to his parents' house. He asked me again where I was heading. I did not know whether to believe this man, much less answer him. Was he a thug? What was he carrying that heavy bag that he slid onto his shoulder? But seeing him struggling to balance the heavy bag on his shoulder, I took pity and I wanted to believe what he was telling. I told him that I was heading towards Surat. "But you are headed the wrong way," he said. "Can I join you?" he asked me. He said that he wanted to go to Surat and that he would be of great help to me as he was aware of those roads. For a moment I thought I was getting into bigger trouble than this ghastly night. Was this man of help? Was he carrying any weapon with him? I looked at him again. The stranger appeared to be in need of help, and so was I. I waved at him and asked him to get inside and sit beside me. In a flurry, he pushed his bag to the back of the car seat and sat beside me. He asked me why I had taken that road, which was not in use. I told him I had lost my way. He then asked me to make a U-turn at the bridge, which I did, and then we started on our journey forward once again. He was quite talkative. He started talking to me where he lived in Surat with his family. He said he owned a jewelry shop in Surat. He asked me where I was headed to. I told him I was going to my brother's place in Khergam village near Surat. He kept talking to me all the way. He told me that it would not be practical to continue in the night to Khergam. He suggested that I break journey at Surat and stay at his house for the night. He guided me all the way to his house. I had succumbed to destiny and wherever it took me. I was tired and badly needed rest. I had no choice but to accept his invitation to stay in his house for the night and then move ahead early morning to Khergam. My head was aching, but something was happening at the back of my mind. Should I believe this person whom I had not met before, and take his help once again, or should I move on to Khergam? Was I falling into a well-laid trap of his? All these thoughts were crossing my mind when my friend told me that they were nearing his house. He then showed a house and asked me to stop in front of it. He told me that he had reached his house. We had reached his house around midnight. He pulled out his luggage from the back seat and came out of the car. He started gazing towards me, waiting for my decision. I reached out for my bag also, and I came out of the car. I told him I was accepting his invitation to stay over at his house for the night. A young lady who appeared to be his wife came out hearing our car stop at the house. My host talked to the lady, and then the couple called me and took me to their guest room. I had taken my luggage with me, but my host offered a shirt and a dhoti for me to wear in the night. Then he called me to his dining table. His wife served food for both of us. My host introduced me to his family members. He made me feel at home. I rested for the night. I had a peaceful sleep that night. The next morning, my host woke me up early, got me hot water for a bath, and then he made me have a quick breakfast and coffee to drink. He then explained me how to reach Khairgam. I thanked him and his family again and again for being such a good and kind host. I told him how lucky I was to find him in the circumstances that I did, and that I would never forget their help in my lifetime. And so I moved on. It was broad daylight now. The roads were clear and open. I drove for about 4 hours. I knew I was nearing Khairgam village. So I stopped by a tea stall, had tea, and asked the tea shop owner for directions to Khairgam. He answered me in Gujarati, in the local language, which I was not familiar with. It appeared to me as if he was trying to ask me something. I asked him if he knew English. It seemed to me that he did not understand English. So I politely asked him in Hindi, but still I got a reply only in Gujarati. I had very little knowledge of Gujarati, the local language. So I moved on to the next person and asked him the way to Khairgam. He also replied me in Gujarati. So I was getting more questions than I got any answers in Gujarati, which I didn't know. I thought I could move ahead and ask some more people at the next village. I stopped again by the roadside at the next village and asked directions to Khairgam, but to no avail. I got answers only in Gujarati. I was getting desperate. I decided I would go another 5 kilometers, and if I could not get any answer, I would start my way back to Surat. I stopped at another tea stall. Again I asked him the same question, and I got replies in the local language. I was getting nervous. I did not know how to find out where I was. There was no way to contact my brother. I decided that I will try my luck at one more village. Otherwise, I would head back to Baroda. I might have moved ahead a few kilometers only when I saw a group of people in the fields with theodolites used for land surveys. I could make out those people were from the irrigation department, and they could possibly tell me where my brother was. I reached out for those people in the fields, and when I reached closer to them, I could see my brother in that small crowd. I waved at him, and he looked at me with surprise. I had reached my destination. I was thankful to God for having brought me here safe and sound. But there was a few questions lingering in my mind. Could an unknown person be of such help to any stranger? How could I manage to reach my destination unhurt? How could I get help from nowhere? Was my host God sent? Would I ever venture to help someone in such a situation in the same way that the host did to me? Secondly, I wanted to know what were the tea shop owners, the people around the tea shop, asking me? What were they all asking me when I was asking directions to Khergam? I was wondering. When I told my brother the story, he told me that there were three prominent areas or fadiyas in Khergam. And all they were asking you was which area of Khergam did you want to go? That explained what they were all asking me whenever I asked them directions for Khergam. Thank you.